Hello, good evening. Welcome everyone to the inaugural Concert and Conversation series at the Cooper Gallery. In collaboration with JazzUrbane, founded by Bill Banfield, who is in that room waiting for me to finish talking so he can take you into the magic. So this is the first of its kind here at the Cooper Gallery. We have installed 13 exhibitions and we've been operating for 5 years. And we've never had a recurring music series. We've never even had a recurring evening programming series. And I feel this is the perfect way to introduce that here. This is such a beautiful space. It is idiosyncratic. It was designed by David Ajay, sort of a rising starchitect in the architect field. He actually just celebrated the design and opening of the Smithsonian Center of African American History and Culture. So we're a smaller project, but still very important, very beautiful. So yeah, this all started because I received a mysterious email from Bill asking if we could talk about possibilities at the Cooper Gallery, and he didn't elaborate further. So I invited him in, and a few weeks later we had a solid plan for a beautiful series. Zoe Schneider and Xylee Gonzalez-Zamora both helped coordinate, and all we did was open our doors to the possibility of an interdisciplinary series of music, performance, and visual art. So before Bill talks about what we plan to achieve and do with the series, I'd love to talk a little bit about Bill. So, Dr. Bill Banfield is a professor of Africana Studies, professor of Music and Society, director of the Center for Africana Studies and Liberal Arts, and teaches at the Department of Composition at the Berklee College of Music. As a native Detroiter, he received his Bachelor of Music from the New England Conservatory of Music in Boston, a Master of Theological Studies from Boston University, and a Doctor of Musical Arts in Composition from the University of Michigan. In 2002, he was actually here at Harvard with us as a W.E.B. Du Bois Fellow, which was later the Hutchins Center, which you are currently in. And a year later was appointed by Toni Morrison herself to serve as the visiting atelier professor at Princeton University. In 2010, Quincy Jones hired Bill to write a national music curriculum and book about American popular musical culture. Cornel West has referred to him as one of the last grand Renaissance men in our time, a towering artist, an exemplary educator, a rigorous scholar, and a courageous freedom fighter. As a national public radio host and author of 6 books, Bill has served twice as a Pulitzer Prize judge in American music, and just this year was appointed as a research associate with the Smithsonian Center for Folklife and Cultural Heritage. Banfield is the founder of JazzUrbane, a contemporary jazz art recording label dedicated to producing creative new artists. The label's seminal project, released in 2014, was produced by legendary icon George Duke and included leading artists such as Christian Scott, Terry Lynn Carrington, Naji, Greg Osby, and Grace Kelly. The label has produced and released 8 albums to both national and international acclaim. Tonight, we are thrilled to usher in the first collaboration between the Cooper Gallery and JazzUrbane. Please join me in welcoming Bill Banfield.
Thank you, Gabby. Hello, everybody. I was just sitting right there. It wasn't supposed to be this dramatic. There was just no seats left. You all took all the seats. So this is wonderful that you're filling the seats with this space and filling this space with your presence and your spirits. Why don't you give yourselves a round of applause? It's so great. And we have to thank Abby as well. There's a little history with our whole association here, and we've been trying to do something that would connect wonderfully. I'll give you a little bit of history. We thought, beginning this talk, that we would call it Conversations and Concerts. for the very reasons that Gabby pointed out. And being in this wonderful room, this seemed like a great place. We thought about several places at the center gallery there, so we would come in the center, but this seemed to make sense. But I thought since we are going to have a series of speakers, I was chosen to be the first speaker. No, thanks. So I would love to just sit down and have a glass of water or wine with you all, but I have to speak tonight. So my students often tell me that we're in the modern era, so that I like to try to have a piece of paper with me to kind of talk sometimes through my notes, but I'm going to use an electronic, look at that. We're going to talk a little bit. So we want to get to the music. A few things, notes here I want to talk a little bit about to set these wonderful musicians up. But as Gabby mentioned, this is our future right here. This is the future of music. And these gentlemen, and we have a wonderful array of artists over the next 8 concerts or so. So Gabby wanted me to remind you for sure that your job is to be a fan, a spirit, and as well spirit of this program, and also an ambassador. So you will go tell people, right, that this is the coolest, most swank, most cosmopolitan event to be in Cambridge. Wouldn't you agree? Yes. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that you all turn around and talk to and say hello to someone that you don't know. Just say hello. Hey. Okay, we will continue. No, I love it. I mean, listen, those of us that are in this arena of arts and education, we actually want to have more conversations about the world that we live in. The need of community, the way in which we connect souls to arts, to minds, to spirits, to talk about and be about making this place a more humane place for us to inhabit, and we all know why that's important. So the very spirit that you all brought with just that exchange is so incredibly healing, and it's a great model for how we want this to be. So you are helping us shape this, and again, welcome to the inaugural concert. I want to take us back a little bit, connecting some of these themes with, as Gabby mentioned, conversations of art and culture, engaging in an interdisciplinary connection with the arts and visual arts and performance and talk. I need to go back to 1980 something. Wow, can you believe that? I left here from Harvard. I did, as she said, and this is not academic, but I have to give you a little bit of these themes because they connect us all here. Left here with a master's in philosophy and theology, actually, from BU. But I had to finish my PhD studies at Harvard because my doctorals, I went to Africa and made the argument that music is a theological function of soul and community. And in 1988, we didn't have many cultural studies programs. Cultural studies began in the 50s, but there was no such thing here at BU at the time. And my professor said, you cannot argue a didactic function for the role of art. It doesn't do that. I said, well, excuse me, professor, I just came from Africa, and in Africa, it do that. And so they said, you must reframe it and use European models for your philosophy. And so it was difficult because I had been accepted to my doctoral program. But I took the challenge and instead argued that Richard Wagner, who had hung out with Schopenhauer and Nietzsche, their claim was that the composer brought the meaning of the music to the music community, and then of course Wagner built his theaters there because he said that the role of arts is to bring the people together to the stage. He said that the stage was the moral institution. Now, of course, he was saying exactly the thing that I was saying, but I had to use a European model to do it. So I spent a year at Harvard here in my last year in the theology department. I made that argument, and my professors, of course, because it was Schopenhauer and Wagner, accepted it. That's okay. So I went on to University of Michigan in the 1980s to work on my doctorate, and of course I met there at the beginning or middle part of their beginning of their trajectory in the 80s was of course Cornel West and Henry Louis Gates. And both of those gentlemen in the 80s embraced me and encouraged me and said, "You go forward, young man, and it's going to be all right." I finished my doctorate and was a professor of Afro-American Studies and Music at Indiana University. And I began this idea, continuing that support, to develop as an artist and a composer, but this idea of education and cultural arts. Go forward a few years later to 1998 or so, and Skip actually came and inaugurated. I was an endowed chair at a university called the University of St. Thomas in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I envisioned there to have a cultural studies department, American cultural studies, and I asked Big Brother Skip to come inaugurate that. And I think I got an NEH grant and brought Skip in, and he inaugurated the program, and it was wonderful. But again, that connection with him and Afro-American studies and scholarship and arts and culture, bringing us forward. I came here as a Du Bois Fellow, as she said, in 2000, and so I said, Skip, what should I do? I was a young professor, but moving along. I said, what should I do? He said, I want you to focus on the future of black music. This was 2000. And you see this book, William Banfield Black Notes, Essays of a Musician Writing in a Post-Album Age. What is the future of black music? This is the promo for that, but I'm sharing that with you to say that it was that kind of encouragement. Let's go forward a few more years. I went back to St. Thomas, and then I was invited to come here to Boston and inaugurate the Black Studies program at Berkeley. So I asked the other big brother, Cornel West, if he would come and inaugurate the program at Berkeley. That was 2005, I think. And we've been there, I think, 15 years now. It's 2020. We inaugurated Africana Studies at Berkeley, and I invited Sweet Honey in the Rock to sing the program in, and Cornel West to tell us, like what we're talking here, what the connection of music and culture and all the things we're talking about was all about. So that's a little bit of the thing there. When I got here, I got together with some friends who are here, Ron Dorsey, who was here, and I said, can you help me pull together music in a way that that connects to jazz traditions, global traditions, but has a little hip hop thing on it? You know, I'm envisioning that we could do something that would actually connect to the tradition, but project forward to the future. And he, at that time, was doing a lot of things with hip-hop culture, jazz, mixing them up, and I asked him if he would take my arrangements and bring a kind of framework to it that could be a mixture of those traditions. And I called it the JazzUrbane. I said, would you help me put this thing together and help me see this? And Ron said, yeah, I think I can do it. He's a very talented person, a beautiful brother, but also incredible amount of energies and visions for all kinds of things. He's an eclectic like I am. And he began to shape this thing. So then the next issue, this is like 2007. The next thing is, well, we have to perform this music somewhere too. So we started to think, and I met Esperanza Spalding. You guys know Esperanza Spalding, who's a professor here. So it's all connected. You all know Esperanza Spalding? Yes, okay, good. And Esperanza Spalding had arrived at Berkeley as a student, or was a young professor too. She was a student, but they hired her, and I was a professor. I said, hey, how would you like to do something in town? Let's do a concert series. She said, yeah, let's do it. So there was a place called Daryl's in town. You guys know Daryl's in Boston? It used to be, when I was a kid, it used to be called Bob the Chef's. And Daryl said, okay, you can run a series here. So we had the help of Ron Dorsey with the kind of eclecticism of hip hop and jazz. We had a place now to play. And now we were assembling musicians in 2007. And Esperanza and I said, we're going to do every Monday night at Daryl's, right? So she was so forward, as you know, and I'm old, as you know, by this time. And I said, maybe a better thing is I'll put together some older guys. Not old, but just a little more in my season, right? And then we'll invite the younger artists, and that's how we started collaborating. And we invited, at the time, Esperanza, Grace Kelly, Christian Scott. That Monday night series got named in you guys don't know this whole story, got named in the New York Times as one of the best Monday night jazz series around. And so it grew and grew, and we decided then with that collaboration to then start a label. And that could help to bring more artists. So we had all these wonderful young artists. These guys weren't born yet, by the way. I think you were maybe 12 or 13 or something like that. I don't know, very, very, we're going back. So the short end of this long story is that we began to really develop relationships with younger musicians with this mentorship that Ron and I started with, both the formation of a music concept that could be produced. So I asked my mentor, one of my mentors, George Duke, that she talked about, if he would produce it. If I could bring together these artists that I know, like Terry Lynn Carrington, like Greg Osby, Christian Scott, and we produce a project that in fact imbibed the very concept that we had envisioned and had actually enacted at Daryl's. And that record was called the JazzUrbane. What's the name of the record? Playing with Other People's Heads. And it is a wonderful recording. It's a great recording. It was our seminal recording project, but it also helped us to inaugurate this relationship that we're talking about. And we began to then attract and work with all these younger musicians who we then would say we were mentoring, we were creating this community together, and the JazzUrbane was born. But we started to move that JazzUrbane to Scullers, and we moved it to the Beehive, and we moved it all over. And so we were creating this idea of music in the community, and also creating the kind of community among us that we call the JazzUrbane, that we're now so very, very honored that you are here sharing it and being a part of that. So please give yourselves a round of applause for being here and doing that. We thank you. So the jazz of the future is the question that Henry Louis Gates posed to me, music of the future. We said if music had to survive, it had to have the three prongs of itself, laying a foundation in the past of the great, and also being culturally relevant to where we were. But within that formula, artists and musicians and people thinking forward had to think about the future, and we call that the JazzUrbane, and a kind of a model that moves us forward. So tonight you're hearing these incredible musicians. I'll introduce them, the leader in a moment, who are going to take us on the journey. One of the things that Gabby and I decided to do for this, as we were talking, was to create this space, as she said. I think that they're going to be once a month. Does that sound like enough music? Once a month? Now, would you support it? Yes. So we're depending on you to go out and spread the word to make this thing happen. So we thought it was wonderful to come here to inaugurate this installation because it's about what? Jazz. Stuart is an incredible photographer who captures those things. And if you look at the description, it talks about jazz as being a communicative art form, which brings together community. So this couldn't have been a more perfect installation for us to also enter into and participate in. So one of the formats of the concert, we thought, I'm bringing my 5-minute talk to an end now, is that in fact, we would have a speaker to talk a little bit about the connection of the artwork and its relevance to the work that the artists are doing. They would do some numbers, and then they would allow you to to go around and leave your seats so that they're not background music, they are essentially a very important part of this evening and the concert, but that they would play, and then you all could then kind of see the art, hear the music, come back and listen, have some coffee with them, go back, and that we would have this continuation of music, art, and conversations. Does that make sense? Cool. Yeah. So without any more further air from me, I want to introduce this gentleman here, and he'll introduce his incredible group of artists. They're gonna blow y'all away now. They're killing. These are mostly. Are you from Boston as well? No. Oh, you're the outlier, man. Okay. The rest of these gentlemen we've known since they were very much younger. I think my wife and she directs a program that's called Boston City Music, where young musicians from all over the country go to Berkeley to study, and that means also local young musicians. And I think I met Jesse first. I don't know how old, we won't say how old you were, but you know, he was younger. And he became one of the first musicians. It was the music director for the JazzUrbane. So to watch him grow up as a teenager, then graduate, then get his master's, then get married and have his first child, that's a lot of growing up, huh? But the gentleman to our right this is his gig tonight, and he is very, very well known. Also, Berkeley City Music, did his master's, doing things here in the city, and has become a staple of the Boston and Massachusetts arts community as an educator, but also an incredible horn player. He's a saxophonist who is from this area, and he's local and international as well. And we are so proud of his incredible work and his focus. And we are very, very honored to have Greg Groover be the first JazzUrbane Cooper artist, resident, scholar, citizen, educator. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Greg Gruber. Gruber, sorry.
First, thank you all for being here. I'm super excited. I haven't had nearly as much coffee as my body is telling me I am. I'm all excited just to see all of you and to be in this space. First and foremost, definitely want to thank Dr. William Banfield for all that you're doing. Can we give a big round of applause? Both Gabby and himself did a wonderful job of telling you all about, all the wonderful things that he's doing here, both in our community in Boston, but also around the States and abroad. But it seems like there's every little thing that we think of, there's a need or there's some form of artist renewal or platform that needs to be out there in order for this music to stay alive. Dr. Banfield has got his hand in it. He's on the ground making it happen. So I want to say thank you for all that you're doing. So thank you again. I also want to thank, obviously, Ron, who's the other part of JazzUrbane, who's been another great friend, mentor, and all the amazing work that you're doing. So clap it for Ron Dorsey. And then also, I'm really excited, as speaking about being here, for Gabby and all the folks at Cooper's Gallery that helped make this possible and create this amazing space. As I'm looking around the room, I'm seeing my heroes and folks, you got Ahmad Jamal over here. I saw a wonderful portrait of Roy Hargrove in the other room. And it just has me excited. Sonny Rollins right here, wow. Has me excited to really just get a chance to help keep this music alive in my very, very own small way. But I'm excited to share it with you all. And I can't wait to go around and check out all of the great portraits we have here. Dr. B spoke a little bit about connecting of traditions. The music that you'll hear today is it is a part of a process that the bands are working on for the last couple of years. We released an EP last August entitled The Negro Spiritual Songbook Volume 1. And this came about as a part of my thesis project for my master's program. I grew up right here in Boston, the son of two ministers, and connecting the traditions was something that was around me all the time as they were AME ministers, and I was in church, and I was hearing music, and I was playing music. And then I would go and play my jazz, and my parents supported that, and I was obviously, someone who grew up in the 90s and 2000s, I'm listening to a ton of hip hop and a ton of other music as well. And it was really in that period of time where I decided, how can I make all these art forms connected? They're all beautiful Black American art forms and that are thriving and flourishing. And I wanted to do my own small part of trying to connect those and see what that would sound like outside of my head, through my horn, into your ears. So we released that record or EP in 2018 of August, and we actually just recorded a new recording, a full-length project that I'm hoping to get put out through JazzUrbane. So I'm really excited about that, and hopefully in February. And that features some of the tunes that you'll hear tonight, as well as some new recorded pieces that wasn't on the first EP. So I'm really excited. Thank you all for being here, and I'm gonna not talk anymore. I'm just gonna play a few tunes. We've got 4 or 5 quick numbers for you, some of which, like I said, are on the first recording, and then some of which will be on the new one. But to my left, I want to give a big hand for Jesse Tate on piano. Behind me to my right, we have Mr. Jairus Yoakley on the drum set. And behind me, we always joke about this. It's true. My longest musical companion, and all of them were my brothers and best friends, people I really love dearly. But we've played more gigs together than I played with anyone else. And we went to high school together, graduated there, college together, graduated there, and then followed each other to a master's program and graduated together there. So we can't seem to get rid of each other, and I'm extremely thankful for that. Mr. Max Ridley on bass. I'll give you the first 2 numbers, and then I'll check back in. The first tune is a Negro spiritual. This was actually the very first song I arranged and tried to put into context of what I thought it would sound like from the choir loft when I'd hear the sacred ensemble singing it in my church to a more modern jazz context, and that's what that is. So this is Done Made My Vow to the Lord, and then we're going to go into an original piece entitled The Message. And that piece is something that I wrote inspired by just the feeling of being in the Black American church and hearing the sermon, and also having the interaction of the congregation. But we also combined that with a spiritual as well. And if someone can pick that out, I'll take a little gauge of the room. That'd be great. So I'll check in a little bit. Thank you guys. My name is Gregory. Thank you. On the drum set. One more time, Jared Silky on the drum set. We're going to continue. We're going to slow things down a little bit. We're going to play one of two ballads we have on the recording. It starts off as a ballad, then it doesn't really stay there. But this one's entitled "My Lord When a Morning," and then we're going to play right after that "Go Down Moses." Thank you, thank you. So we're going to play a very, very short one more, and then I know you guys, I don't even have to ask you to do it. You're going to go out and experience this amazing, amazing portraits of these icons of the music, and I'm actually going to go join you in a second as well once we do that, but we're going to be here playing more music, so if you feel free to listen as well, and hopefully we'll get a chance to interact and have some time to converse. And I just want to say thank you again for being here and taking part in this inaugural event. I want to thank again Dr. William Banfield for all you're doing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. To all the folks here at Cooper's Gallery. Gabby, I apologize for not knowing your last name. It's missed me at the moment, but thank you. And to the JazzUrbane family, Ron, Zoe, everyone. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank, I know Dr. Banfield introduced her, but I really want to say thank you to also Dr. Crystal Banfield. Without her, honestly, the three of us, for sure, Jesse and Max would not be here. She's done an amazing work to make sure that the youth in the city of Boston and beyond have an opportunity to study music. So I'm forever grateful to you, forever. So thank you. One more time for Jesse Tate on piano. Jesse Tate. Max Ridley on the bass. And Jared Silkley on the drum set. This last song is a medley of two spirituals. The first of which is My Soul's Been Anchored in the Lord, and the second of which is Rockin' Jerusalem. So we put the two together, and hopefully you hear both. My name is Gregory. Be on the lookout for more music. Thank you guys so much. Thank you. Let's talk soon.